Hello, everybody. It shows that I'm live. So this is week two's video for the history course. It's actually the third video. So I should have put that in the title. I'll see if I can change that after so you can find them easily. So it was nice to chat with a few people today. I had scheduled a chat, and at the front of your beginning of your course outline, the next one that I wanted to schedule is Tuesday again, next Tuesday, July 21st at 7 p.m. So I'm trying to put them at different times so I can sort of catch different people. And I recognize that some of you have not got started yet, and that's okay. If you're finishing up things for Sarah's courses, and you figure you can get that done reasonably soon, if you're way behind, you might want to start on the history course because we have the month of August also to catch up. So I'll leave that to you. A reminder that all the assignments in the history course are not due until the end of July. So that should be a bit more flexible for you. And I know one or two people just received that textbook. So you organize your own time. And I want to also remind you that I've put quite a few readings in there. I don't expect you to do every single one. If there are areas that you're really familiar with, especially in traditional stories, if you are familiar, skip over some of that and find what really grabs you that's new to you. I wanted to say a few words about the history course. One of the students from a past cohort just posted this beautiful little video today. Every time I tried to share it to our group, my screen went zzz. So I don't know if she's got it set on privacy. It shows the share button, so I'm going to keep trying. And the video is of this toddler. And she's sitting in, one of those swings where they can just get their feet on the floor and move around. She's dressed in sort of a traditional native kind of outfit. And I guess she would be under a year old, probably like 8 or 10 months because she's not walking yet. So you see her sitting in this little contraption and she's just still. And some sort of powwow type music comes on with the drum. And this little one just listens for a minute. And then she starts boing, boing, boing in time with the drum. And even her feet are kind of moving around a little bit. It's really sweet. So I'm going to try to share that for you. The thing, it made me think about why we do history, why we want to immerse ourselves in culture. And I look at that little girl, and we want to pass those things along. We want to share that in all its fullness. And so much of that has been Native people, Métis people as well, have been deprived of that knowledge. And it takes, work, effort to uncover that. To me, that's what history is about. It's about so we can understand ourselves better. So the readings that I had for last week included, let me just refresh my memory here. Okay, about the Midewin Society or Lodge. Sometimes it's called the Midewin Medicine Society. And when you read that selection about the migration of the Anishinaabe people from the East Coast to where they're spread out now, the story of the Midewin is part of that. The Seven Fires prophecies grow out of the Midewin teachings. I understand it. And I have a number of friends who have accessed cultural knowledge through Midewin teachings. The more I thought about it, I don't know what your experience of the Midewin Society is, but I'm understanding it as sort of like a university. To become a member of the Midewin Medicine Society was not just a matter of wanting to or expressing interest. I've had friends who it's a 3 or 4 year process. There's levels, and each one takes about a year at least, where there's intensive study and learning of medicines, of plants, of spirituality. You know, there are expectations that you're going to put a lot of time and effort into it. It's like, a bachelor of medicine, of healing, of learning about compassion, learning about self-sacrifice. So I think it's very relevant to our studies. I came across a website that I hadn't seen before, and I posted it on our group. And that was about another old idea, and that's the wampum belts. I have a friend who he's Métis, and he's done for a number of years now. He was interested in these wampum belts, and he actually has learned how to make them, taught himself. He's reconstructed about 30 or so of these historic belts that marked agreements between peoples. And I've seen him do a presentation where he lays a great big white sheet on the floor, and all his belts don't even fit on it. And he can tell the story of each one. So the website that I posted is, I think it's Ojibwe Cultural Foundation. And I think I mentioned that wampum belts were also an Ojibwe thing. I never knew that. I thought it was all Six Nations farther south. So if you take a look at that site, there's 6 or 7 full pages as you scroll down, and you're going to see some photos of either reconstructions of the belts or drawings of them. And that might be of interest to you as far as history, because some of them give like a date that the agreement was made and what it was all about. So when you think of a culture that's oral, what do these represent? To me, they're almost like the library of knowledge, the record of what's gone before us. So when you're doing your timeline, you can actually take some old records from what you find out about those wampum belts. You had a reading about the Treaty of Montreal, the Great Treaty of Peace. I think it's 1701, if I remember right. This was a huge event. I never read about it in history books until recent years. And this was a coming together in Montreal of, like, the call went out to all the First Nations. There were hundreds of people at that. They came from all over. So, you know, like the Haudenosaunee. I know those names from a song. Mohawk, Seneca, Tuscarora, Onondaga, Cayuga, the Three Fires, the Ojibwe tribes, Potawatomi, Chippewa. There were many, many chiefs at it, hundreds of canoes that went to it. It was a huge event. And this was, you know, trying to come at an agreement between the Native peoples and the Europeans. So that's another historic thing that affects you because you were represented there. So when you look over those readings and you come to do your timeline of your community, you can carry it back further. You can go back to the, you know, at least 1700s. So try to include some of those dates. And what you're looking for is as big a picture that you can make of where your community comes from. So anything that talks in those readings about the, you know, the Ojibwe, the Anishinaabe people, try to include those things in your timeline. And bring that timeline right up to the current historic event of COVID-19. Let me just look at my notes here. In this week's readings, I put a couple things in there to also help you with the timeline. That reading that's called Lament for Confederation by Chief Dan George. It's a moving address, and he's recapping the relationship between Native peoples and the you know, Canadian society. So after that Treaty of Montreal and other things, that all the history, he's looking at that with some sadness. There's a reading called The York Boatman by Chief Thomas Fiddler from Sandy Lake. I put that one in there because there's a few of your communities that are actually mentioned in that. And this is about the Hudson's Bay Company and these York boats that they actually used. And think of the connections between First Nations and the Scots and the English in the Hudson's Bay Company, the French, the early fur traders. So you have the Métis people. And the Métis connection with your communities. An example of that is Chief Thomas Fiddler. That last name, Fiddler, is not traditional Anishinaabe. You find that name through, like I know in our students, we've had more than one with that surname. The name McKay, that's not Anishinaabe, that's Scottish. In the website that I found today and I posted, the man who was very influential with the wampum belts is his last name is Corbiere, Corbiere. That's not an Anishinaabe name. That's French. So all through these Northern Ontario Native communities, why is it that you find Scottish and French last names? Well, that's you could say Métis. It's a mix of Anishinaabe and French, or Anishinaabe and Scottish. That goes back to the early fur traders. That's what that York Boat reading is about. So I put that there because I thought you just might find some interesting things about what went on in that territory in the fur trading times. Maybe there'll be something for your timeline there. I know when we used to have our courses at Minnetaki Lodge near Sioux Lookout, the family that owns that lodge has a history of 3 or 4 generations in that area. And some of them worked, I know Daryl Donnelly's father actually worked at a Hudson's Bay trading post that existed until the 1950s or 60s. So that York Boat reading I just put it there for interest for you. And that's in this week's reading. So is the Great Peace of Montreal. I put a link to the Nishnabeyaskie website because I'm sure going to find some historic dates there. There's also a timeline page about numbered treaties, which certainly would affect you. So you might find, your community link there and some dates that you could put into a timeline. Also, if you do that interview with an elder, you're probably going to come up with other things there to add to your timeline. These things, you're not going to find all of them in official records. Make use of everything that you can. And don't worry if you don't know an exact date, put something like you can say about the year, or you can say back in the 1940s. Make a general statement about the time period so you can fit it in. But it doesn't have to be all things from official records. What else? Something else I was thinking there. It might come back to me. I have an idea to now my stream. Something might have stopped here. Okay, I'm not sure if this video is, it seems to be continuing. It sort of stalled for a minute. I have an idea to put out to you. And when I spoke with Susan recently, she called me because she had some thoughts about the course. And there were 2 things that had also occurred to me. The first one was she said, this is after the course outline is all done and everything. Okay. So the first one that she said was she'd been thinking about COVID-19 and how it is a historical event that we're living through. And wow, this should be part of the course. The other thing she suggested was a book. So let me think of those two things here. We've talked already about why COVID-19 is kind of a central thing in this course, because I do recognize it as something that we're living through. And, you know, it's good to think about different aspects of it. If we have to digest it somehow, we might as well make it part of the course. The second idea about a book, I've thought about that too. I've mentioned to you back in March when you went home and you were working on journals, and I started to read what people were writing about, and it was really clear to me that this is sort of precious material, in the sense that it's these firsthand experiences of what it's been like to be living through this event. And I suggested to a few people that, wow, they should put that away and think about preserving it and sharing it with their children, even if the kids are small now. As adults, they might really appreciate reading what happened when they were small. Some amazing stories that you've written. In this course, we're looking at an interview with an older person. They don't have to be 85. Like, a couple people have asked about, you know, how do we find an elder, or we can't go and visit them. How can we do this? Well, from my point of view, it's exciting to see people working their way around that and being inventive. Now, I forget who it was right now, but one person, I think in the chat today, was saying who they wanted to interview. And it was, I think it was a father, maybe. I'm just not sure. So the person lives even in a different community. So how do you do that? And the person is hard of hearing. So you can't just do it by phone. So the solution was, the sister lives in that same community where the older person is. And could they conduct the interview and record it? What a wonderful, inventive way to approach this. Somebody else did the interview with their mother. So there's ways that you can do this. You're not limited, okay? The point is to try and get the information. So whatever way you can accomplish that is fine. So in our course, we've got the interview. We've got you doing a timeline for your community that comes right up and includes COVID-19. We've got in the other assignments, let me just check back here. The interview, the timeline. Oh, the reflection on COVID-19 as a historic event. Those are going to be very interesting. I'm actually anxious to read your assignments. And the other one, the letter to the next seven generations, to your children and your grandchildren, and maybe it'll get passed on. Think of this as a real letter that you're going to copy out somehow and save. When I put all of those things together, I agree with Susan that it merits a book. Doesn't have to be fancy. I can get it, probably a spiral bound or something like that. But Susan brought this up from Brock. So I'll end this video with a question for you. And remember, for each of these videos, I've opened the comment setting on YouTube. So you're going to be able to watch the video and enter a comment after it. Okay, and that you are required to do that because, as I said before, this is my way of starting to feel a connection with you, and for you to feel that with me and the rest of the class. So I want to know, I want you to comment on this, not just a yes or no, but if you could put a sentence or something. This idea of a book, and it's like the experiences of a pandemic. I want to know what you think about this, about combining everybody's efforts and putting it together into one document, one book. And I imagine Susan would find a way to get us a little bit of money to put it together. And we could make copies, like not just for everybody in the class, but this is something that you could, let's say, present to your chief and council. And then it's not just you working and studying on your own, but it gives you an opportunity to actually give something back to the community. And I think that it would be an important book for your community to have access to. So my question for the video is, what do you think of this? And you can write a sentence or you can write more. And I think there's a big advantage to posting this under the video because everybody can see everybody else's comments, and we could get a bit of a dialogue going. So would you please give some thought to that and keep working, keep slugging. By the way, we did the chat today by, I just used the Facebook room, and there were some people from far northern communities, and the video quality was really good. So I don't know what it's like if you get 15 people or something on it, but people were sort of coming and going. And so the next one then is next Tuesday at 7 p.m. Wait a minute, I've got to check that time. It's 7 p.m. your time, I believe. Yeah, so 8 o'clock my time. So next Tuesday at 7, we'll do a live chat again. And would you please think about that idea of a book, and if you see it as something of value. I really think that from what I got in journals and that before, there's some really good writers in the group, and it would be of great interest. I know I want to put that together for myself. So I'll end with that. don't forget to put your comments in under the video when you view it. I'll just give my phone number again, too, if anybody needs to send me a message. 705-527-2680. And I will check this video, make sure it works okay. There's probably a stall of about a minute or so in the middle. I was almost ready to turn it off, and then it activated again. So keep well, keep safe, keep working. Okay, bye for now.